People look at my husband Robert and me, and they see a fairy tale. They see two 90-year-olds holding hands in the park, and they say, "Oh, look at them. That's true love." They must have been happy every single day. I usually just smile and nod. I don't have the heart to tell them the truth. But I'm 93 years old. I don't have time for polite lies anymore. The truth is, in 75 years of marriage, I didn't just love that man. There were at least 5 distinct moments where I hated him. 5 times where I packed a suitcase. 5 times where I looked at the door and thought, if I walk out now, I will finally be free. If you're struggling in your relationship right now, please don't turn this off. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't a fairy tale. It's the blood and guts of how 2 people actually stay together for a lifetime. My name is Mary. I've been married to Robert since June of 1950. We've raised 4 children, buried 1, and lived in the same house for 60 years. I know Robert better than I know myself. When we got married, my mother told me, "Mary, marriage is work." But she didn't say what kind of work. She didn't tell me that marriage is actually a series of deaths and rebirths. You see, I haven't been married to one man for 75 years. I've been married to 5 different men. And Robert has been married to 5 different women. We changed. We broke. And every time we broke, we had to decide, do we walk away? Or do we build a new marriage with this stranger sleeping in our bed? Thinking back, the first time I wanted to leave was when we had only been married 3 years. It was 1953. We were dirt poor. Robert was working at the factory. I was taking in sewing. We were saving every penny to buy a house. We ate oatmeal for dinner 3 nights a week. One Friday, Robert came home with a box. He had this huge, goofy grin on his face. I thought maybe he'd brought home some meat, or maybe a little gift for me. But he opened the box, and it was a hi-fi record player, top of the line. He'd spent our entire savings, 3 months of rent, on a machine to play music. I looked at him, and I didn't see a husband. I saw a child, a selfish, stupid child who didn't understand survival. I remember standing in our tiny kitchen, the smell of burnt oatmeal in the air, screaming at him. I told him he was irresponsible. I didn't want joy. I wanted security. That night I packed a bag. I sat on the edge of the bed, waiting for him to come apologize. He didn't. He was in the living room, listening to jazz records in the dark. I didn't leave because I realized he was right. We were dying inside. That record player was the most irresponsible thing he ever did, but it saved us from becoming robots. Then, about 12 years later, it happened again. This was the mid-60s. By then, we had 3 kids under the age of 10. Robert was climbing the ladder at work. He was the provider, and I was the homemaker. That sounds nice, doesn't it? But here is what it actually looked like. Robert would come home at 6 o'clock. He'd kiss me on the cheek, mechanically, and walk straight to his chair. He'd open the newspaper, and he would disappear. I was drowning. I was exhausted in a way that sleep couldn't fix. One night the baby was screaming, the pot boiled over, and I burned my hand. I looked at Robert. He hadn't moved. He was reading about the space program. I walked over to him, and I snatched the paper out of his hands. I tore it in half. I said, "I am here. I am a person." He looked at me like I was crazy and told me to calm down because he had been working all day. That was the dagger. I felt like a ghost in my own life. We slept in separate rooms for a month. We stayed together for the children, and that's the truth. Sometimes the kids are the only bridge left standing until you can rebuild the rest. The third crisis came when the kids were finally gone. It was 1985. Suddenly, the house was quiet. For 30 years, our conversations had been about logistics. Who needs braces? Did you pay the electric bill? Now, there were no logistics. I remember our first dinner alone, just the 2 of us at the big dining table. I looked at him, and I realized I had nothing to say to him. I didn't know who he was anymore. I didn't know his dreams. I didn't even know if he was still funny. The silence was so loud it hurt my ears. I thought, is this the next 30 years? Sitting across from a stranger, listening to him chew. I started looking at apartments. I thought I'd done my job, and now I wanted to find myself. But then Robert bought a camper van. He wanted to see the Grand Canyon. I didn't want to go, but I went. And somewhere on the road in Arizona, the car broke down. We were stranded for 4 hours in the heat, and we started laughing. We laughed until we cried. In that laughter, I met the new Robert. I met a man, not just a father, and I liked him. As we got older, Specifically, when Robert retired, things changed a fourth time. You think retirement is a blessing, but for a wife used to having the house to herself, it can be a nightmare. Suddenly, he was everywhere. He was in my kitchen, rearranging the spices. He was telling me how to load the dishwasher. He had lost his job, so he tried to make me his job. I couldn't breathe. One morning, he told me I was watering the plants wrong. I put down the watering can and told him that if he said one more word about how I run this house, one of us was moving out. I meant it. We had to renegotiate everything. We had to draw lines on the floor and learn how to be retired together without driving each other insane. It took us 3 hard years to find that balance. The 5th time I wanted to run was only a few years ago. This is the one nobody talks about. Robert fell and broke his hip, and his mind started to get foggy. Suddenly, I wasn't a wife anymore. I was a nurse. I was changing sheets, helping him to the bathroom. And I'm old too. My bones ache. One night at 3 a.m, he called out for me. As I walked down the hallway, a terrible dark thought came into my head. I thought, I wish this was over. I wish he would just go so I could rest. I felt like a monster. Caregiving strips away dignity. I wanted to run to a place where nobody needed me. But the next morning, he looked at me and whispered, "Thank you, Mary. I'm sorry I'm a burden." That apology was enough to get me through another day. People ask me why I stayed. They want a magic word. Here is the secret. I stayed because I realized that the bad times were not the end of the movie. They were just a scene. If I had left in 1953, I would have missed the man who held me when our son died. If I had left in 85, I would have missed our 20-year romance in that rusty van. Love isn't a feeling. Feelings change like the weather. Love is a commitment to the future version of your partner. It's saying, I don't like you very much right now, but I'm going to stick around to see who you become next. If you are sitting there right now, thinking you made a mistake, listen to me. Maybe you are just at the end of marriage number 1 or marriage number 3. Don't throw it away just because it's uncomfortable. Stop trying to fix the whole relationship today. Just find one 10-minute window where you put the phones down and ask your partner, What is one thing I do that makes you feel invisible? And then, and this is the hard part, shut your mouth. Don't defend yourself. Just listen. The silence is what kills you. The yelling, that's energy. You can work with that. But you can't work with silence. Robert is asleep in the other room right now. He snores like a freight train. Sometimes I look at his empty chair and I get a shiver of fear, knowing that one day soon the silence will be permanent. And I'm so glad I didn't pack that bag. I'm Mary. If this story made you think, please subscribe. There aren't many of us left to tell you the truth about things. And if you have a story of a time you almost left but stayed, write it in the comments. We need to hear it. Go love your messy, imperfect person while you still can.